Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Piros of Tri-City Equity Group. Today, we have Brent Bowers on the show. Brent is an investor and coach with a focus on buying and selling vacant land. So I love his program name here, but he's a veteran. He was an Army officer, over 8 years of service. So thank you for your service to our country. Brent noticed he was spending a great deal of time away from his family. Knew you needed to make some changes in order to be more present. We're just having a great conversation off camera for that one, so hopefully we can dive a little bit more into that. But he wanted to be more at home with his wife, his kids. So he began investing in real estate as a way to support his family while having more time to spend with them. A short period of time, Brent was able to expand his business, hire a team, still have more time to spend with his family. And he now helps other investors learn the in and outs of buying land and how they can learn and do the same. Brent, welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks for having me on the Cash Flow Project Podcast. The name is just perfect and right up my alley because that's what cash flow is doing for me. It changed my life.
Yeah, awesome. No, super glad to have you on the show, and excited to hear what you had for our guests and our listeners today. So, but yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. If you're, how our listeners that may not be familiar with you, how'd you get started in real estate investing, and tell us a little bit more about kind of the start of that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and I don't say any of this to boast or brag. I just want to just share this from the rooftop. Finding land investing has made me a happier person, and I'll explain why. But it absolutely changed my life. I got started at a weird time, and now looking back, if I would have had a crystal ball, but now looking back, it made the most sense because I started in 2007, went through 2008. That was a tough time in the market for anybody that's not tracking that, but it was a really hard time to get started. I got my real estate license. I bought my first rental property. I handed my business over to my dad. We had a lawn and landscape company that I had built in middle school and grew it up. And I was making pretty good money and handed all that over and said, look, I'm heading to the coast of West Palm Beach, Florida. I'm going to hang out with Donald Trump on Palm Beach Island. And man, I got my teeth kicked in on a daily basis, not literally, but it was a tough market. I would wear out shoes. I would go through a pair of shoes like each month door knocking. And I reverted to basically driving tenants around to find dirty, stinky cat pee houses to rent out in South Florida that I had to get there ahead of time and spray Lysol. And it really sucked when I was driving in my car, like, give me like 5 minutes. Let me walk in and like open windows or something. These houses stunk and it was South Florida. And these landlords were so cheap, they wouldn't even run the air conditioner. And one day I called that broker and I just quit. I was like, I'm done with this. I had to move in with my in-laws because I couldn't afford my rent. So now I'm getting extremely humble as a 24-year-old prior business owner, by the way, real estate license. Had my first rental property and they're destroying it and not paying the rent. And I was like, there's got to be something better out there. So I joined the military so I can go to school. The Air Force wouldn't even allow me in. So I had to go to the Army. And luckily the Air Force, and this is no bash on the Army, everything works out for a reason. God definitely directed my path. But the Air Force recruiter was luckily kind enough to say, look, go next door to the Army. They'll pretty much take anybody. And I did. I didn't see that as an insult. I saw that as I need to make some money, whatever it takes. So did a couple of years, couple of combat deployments to Afghanistan, lived in Germany for a little while. And 2013 got pulled back out of my second deployment into what's called the Green to Gold program, where they sent me to school to be an Army officer. I was getting that dream, kind of like the dream you and your wife just accomplished, Steve. You were telling me about before you hit the record button, but that dream was happening. I'm finally going to school and I'm going to be an officer. And I made it to a non-commissioned officer, E5 sergeant really quickly. And my life literally went down the drain because my first wife ended up leaving because I was always gone. And she met another man when I was on my second deployment, and it just kind of went crashing down. And about the same time, I'm getting pulled out of Afghanistan, get to come back to the States. And I fell back into real estate. I bought a house next to the college, started house hacking, and then started wholesaling houses to pay for my college courses, and then stumbled on land. And that's kind of what I'm here to talk about today. All those like gutter moments. And I really tried to breeze over that, turned into what's been built today.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And, and even the painful moments too, we talked a little bit about this earlier, where it's like, of course, everybody wants to tout all of the, the success and whatnot, but, for most of us, it's a journey to get there, right? Like it's usually not, okay, well, hey, here's the keys to real estate success. And it's all rainbows and butterflies and all that, like from the get-go. Usually it's coming from, the spur to kick us into high gear, especially going into a different field, or for you, back into another field. It usually comes from a place of need, right? A challenge that needs to overcome. So yeah, no, thanks for kind of sharing that. Give us a little bit of giving us some insight there and some background on, how you gotten started. So
yeah, it was definitely an absolute challenge. Were there some good things along the way? Absolutely. I met the woman of my dreams, 2015, and we got married very shortly after that in 2016 and got pregnant. And guess what? History was repeating itself. I was preparing for my third combat deployment. I was going to be away for another year. And this time a baby was involved. And I wasn't willing to keep doing that. And I had to make some decisions to get up early and stay up late to build a business that brought cash flow in. Because all I had to do was I had to replace my expenses each month. And they were so cheap back then. And I'd say they were so cheap back then because the problem is another entrepreneur, business person problem is we let our expenses increase with our income sometimes, or most of the time. So my expenses were $4,500 a month back then. And that's all I had to bring in payments from land notes where I would sell or finance the land to basically put in my resignation with the military. And it just kind of really got my butt in gear because I was doing it out of fear. I was doing it for a huge why for family and not to lose another wife because I thought history would repeat itself. So there's two motivators, I believe, away from pain or towards pleasure. I am by far away from pain. You tell me you're taking my house tomorrow, I'll figure out a way to pay off this house by the end of the day. But if you tell me, hey, I'll give you a house tomorrow if you do this, that's not going to motivate me.
No, and that's where it's so vital, I think, to understand kind of like your human psyche and really yourself, right? Because I think those same two drivers are present for all of us. So finding what triggers you, right, in terms of, taking action and kind of making moves. Yeah, no, that's so key. And that's a part of this, all of this, you guys, it's all part of like the journey. Like I said, it's one thing to analyze, deals and to know certain strategies and whatnot, but determining your why, and really the why is even not even, is already even a step two, because you have to kind of backtrack a little bit of, you can dive deeper, right? This can turn into a total psychology session, right? Where it's like, well, your why also comes from somewhere, usually some kind of underlying driving motivators, and factors, whether that be your upbringing or like for you, certain situations. And it's like, okay, well, where does this come from? Right. And so, yeah, and again, this is all part of our journey. So I really appreciate you for being transparent and, kind of sharing with the listeners that, because again, for a lot of people, all we see is, oh yeah, man, he's on the mountaintop and success and, this and, the life is amazing. And it's like, yeah, but there's always a journey to get there. There's always a journey. So yeah, no, thanks. Thank you for your transparency there. So yeah, so kind of, okay. So you're, now you're on your second, marriage, you're kind of getting started back into real estate. You have, maybe getting some traction there. It sounds like with with some deals, kind of what was next? Where did you go from there? Or was that it? Did you kind of, retire at that point and say, all right, cool, I got these notes paying off and yeah, that's it. Sell out into the sunset, retired in the military and all that kind of stuff. Or did you, or yeah, it sounds like maybe.
I wish I could say it was that easy. It took a lot of steps and a lot of trial and error and mistakes and sleepless nights. And I'm not saying sleepless nights because I was up working. It was because I was like, oh my God, is this going to work out type thing? It's like when you're laying there in bed and you're tired and you wake up in the middle of the night, it's like, why were all those things keeping me up last night? Like now that I'm awake and I'm refreshed and I've had a shower and had a workout. Like that's nothing. But no, I'll tell you, let's start with a step. So I was wholesaling houses to pay for the college courses in 2013. And I kind of brought that out to, Colorado Springs because the military moved me and my wife in 2015 to basically Virginia for a little while and then Colorado Springs. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this because ultimately my goal is to get out of the military. Well, I was spending a fortune on mailers. We actually bought a 19-unit apartment complex with partners, with friends. And it was like, almost like I was always losing money. I was always costing me more in mailers and then more in renovations. I got up to almost 25 doors. And here's the thing, what I found with these doors, and some were apartments, some were houses. You can set your watch by this, by the way. It's almost like every 6 to 9 months, something would break. I would have $200 or $300 net per door. And then that would all get wiped out when that air conditioner broke or that water heater broke or the toilet exploded. I mean, pure, like I had a geyser of poop one time just coming through one of our basements. And let me tell you this, if we would not have had a commercial insurance policy, not just a regular old homeowner's policy, but a commercial one, we would have been like ankle deep in crap, literally, figuratively. But that commercial policy paid for everything because it was a little bit more. And luckily, my assistant figured that out. But anyhow, that's another little gold nugget right there. Have commercial policies on your rentals. But I would always be in the negative every year. And it's like, one day we'll make a positive on these properties. And I was listening to podcasts like the Cash Flow podcast, just looking for answers. Because I was like, there's got to be a way that I can have this business run simultaneously with my 12 to 14 hour day Army job, plus get to see my new wife and hang out with my newborn baby. Cause, ultimately, like we still have responsibilities as men and, husbands and wives too, in the home front. Here's what's crazy. And I promise I'll stop rambling here in a second, but I feel like we give our best hours to our employers, our employees and our team and our customers. By the time we get home on a 14-hour day, or maybe an 8-hour day for some people, like we are spent. And our son says, "Hey, Daddy, will you come jump on the trampoline with me?" And I'm like, "Oh, my back and my butt and everything's hurting." And, I just worked like a horse all day long for a couple dollars an hour. So anyhow, I was listening to podcasts and I found the answer. And it was flipping land. I heard about this guy doubling his money overnight. He wasn't going and meeting with the seller, like sitting on their couch and just like thinking to myself, I'm going to get like some type of poison because of the mold that's growing in this thing. That's a whole nother story, but he wasn't meeting with sellers. He was doing this like overnight and doubling and tripling his money. And I was like, that is what I want to do. So we turned it into that. I started mailing the tax delinquent list and then eventually expanded from that and just started buying and selling those parcels really quickly. And then I started seller financing a couple of them at a time. And before I knew it, I was up to $9,000 a month in passive income. And I mean, passive, like money coming in, payments coming in every single month. Did I go out and buy a Lambo? No, I still had to buy land, but I was good enough to where I could put in that packet to get out of the military.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. And yeah, you were talking about that earlier, right? Where it's like, you have an expense creep, right? Talking about the payment for the Lambo. And a lot of times, like, yeah, a lot of, entrepreneurs will kind of fall into that trap of, okay, well, I'm making some money. Like, I'm going to go buy a new car and I'm going to go, buy a bunch of stuff or, whatever. And so it turns into, you are having success and you are making more, but then you do have that expense creep. Where now everything else is more because you're spending more.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
You got to do a deal just to pay for this tax bill. I got to do a deal just to make payroll this month. Oh my goodness. And I've never heard anybody call it the expense creep. One thing we just did to help mitigate that is we just reported 8 of our debit cards lost just now. I got multiple packets with debit cards in the actual envelopes right now that they mailed back to us. Because also another thing that happens is, before you know it, you're paying for all these services and you got 6 Adobe accounts and 4 DocuSign accounts and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, where's all the money going?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I kind of want to touch on that too, because you were successful in transitioning out of the Army. So it sounds like that's turned into something now where you're helping, specifically. I mean, obviously you'll help wherever, I'm sure, but specifically veterans and other people that might be in a similar situation, to help them invest. Is that sounds like that's kind of a passion play for you. Obviously, it's not it's not an easy life. Multiple of my partners are military, and a lot of our listeners are as well. So speak a little bit more about that, and how you may have helped some people along the way, or why you're targeting or helping that specific demographic.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, because we have a lot of military members, veterans, that are in the Land Sharks community. And, some of our guys are not getting out. They don't want to get out of the military, but an extra $1,500 a month is life-changing for them, because it's like, hey, I can afford to go on these trips. I can afford to pay for this college. One of my students just came in and he said, I heard one of your videos, and he's not a veteran, but he said, you know what, right? And he's like, I have a very cushy job. I have a great job, and there's so many perks, and I love it, and I'm never leaving. But you mentioned on one of your videos on YouTube an extra $2,000 a month. And I can't even imagine what my life would look like for an additional $2,000 a month. And another one is like, we had this grandma come into the program, and she just needed an extra $350 a month to pay for her medications. It's like, you might not want to make $1 million. Like one of my students, like that, his goal was to make $1 million a year, and he's hit it. So everyone has different goals, and it's just unbelievable what you can accomplish by having a system. And the system came from all my mistakes and my failure and the money I lost and the sleepless nights. And I thought I was going to get a divorce 5 or 6 times getting this business off the ground. And then I remind myself, why are you doing this? It's for your family. So it's like that vicious cycle type thing. Like, it's almost like, okay, we're doing this for the family, not for the ego. Because it's like, we all want to make I shouldn't say we all want to have like nice things to show for it. But, it gets crazy. It gets all, you just got to remember why you're doing this and what that goal was, and stop moving that goalpost.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's for sure too. And then that kind of factor, or that kind of plays, I think, a little bit more back into like the expense creep, right? Because it's like, the lifestyle increases and all that kind of stuff. And then, like they said, or like you just mentioned, right? The goalpost keeps getting, pushed down a little bit more. And that's awesome. That's awesome that you've had, people kind of seek out, even just trying to pay for like the daily expenses. Like, that's, man. And, for those of our listeners that may be in a different, position, right? Because we've got people from, who knows, I'm not sure who exactly might be needing to hear this message today, right? But gosh, I mean, with all of the inflation that's happening, and, with gas being as expensive as it is in certain markets, and, housing it where it's at, I mean, gosh, I don't know too many people that would turn away some extra income, right? Like, maybe it is like that for medication or just groceries. I mean, I know everybody's joking about the common thing, the eggs now, which is, I thought was kind of funny, but that's pretty simple, so right? Funny. You would think that that's a pretty basic thing. I mean, gosh, I think I remember eggs being like 50 cents or $1 when I was a kid.
For like a whole 12 pack, right?
For a whole dozen. Yeah. And then, now you pop in a Walmart or just some random grocery store, and it's like, oh my goodness, like, like what in the world? Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, anything you can do. I mean, and I feel like that's something that people should be employing all the time anyways. It's like just skill building, getting better. If it's this, then awesome. Learn how to, develop a new skill set. For one, you'll feel better just for the try, just for trying to learn something new. And then it has the potential to turn into something great. That's life changing, whether it's, $500 a month, $1,000, $2,000, whatever, $1 million. That's game changing. So, no, that's awesome. That's awesome that you're able to help others do that. And it sounds like you've got a pretty developed system. Tell us a little bit more about the Land Shark, and kind of how people can kind of tune into that or get in touch with you about that.
Well, I appreciate you asking. I promise you I'll answer that question, but that going back to that game changing of the extra $500 a month, my original goalpost was I just needed to make $4,500 a month. And because that's what our expenses were. It was actually like $4,400 a month. And I was like, oh, I'm going to give myself a cushion of $100. So $4,500 was the number. And I didn't know that I could do that until like the first land deal. We bought it for literally $285 and called a realtor, a real estate office, to ask, what do you think this land's worth down the street? And that realtor ended up buying it from me for $5,000 the next day, pretty much. Well, I called her on a Saturday. She bought it on Wednesday. And then the second one, I figured out the financing, because I always thought the banks were fascinating. How do you get a $200,000 mortgage at 6% interest and pay back $430,000 over 30 years? Like, you're paying more in interest than you actually paid. And that's the power of compounding interest. And the banks have it figured out. So I was getting fascinated with that. So I had another piece of land that I got under contract for $500 this time from a sweet old little lady. Her husband had bought it like 100 years ago and they had been paying the back taxes. She's like, just give me $500 and it's yours. And I didn't know what I was buying. I was so like scared. I was like, would you do it for less? And she's like, honey, are you kidding me? Like, write the check or get off my porch. And I actually went and met her, and because I dropped my wife off at the Denver airport, I kept my son. Me and Zechariah hung out. And so I got the little baby in my hand trying to negotiate with this lady. She's like straight told me, get lost. So I wrote her the check for $500. This was a Saturday. I went and took photos that afternoon, got a friend to watch Zechariah, and I had to trespass on land to get to this land because it was landlocked. It was just a garbage piece of land. I had to trespass on a state park. So I didn't think it would be good to take like a couple-month-old baby to do that. And I only had to do it once. Here's my disclaimer, but it only takes once. I got in trouble by the state park. They had said, look, you can't come across our land. I don't care if you own that land. I was like, I own the land though. They said, well, you should rent a helicopter and fly in here then. And I was like, okay. So I had the photos. That's all I needed. I put it on Craigslist. I disclosed that you're going to need to get a real estate attorney or an ingress, egress, or an access attorney. You're going to have to figure this out. But I'll sell it for $5,000 and I want $500 down because I wanted my money back out of that deal. I was spending grocery money, by the way. So I got $500 down the next day, which was a Sunday, and the guy paid me $400 a month, 0% interest. So now I'm like paradigm shift, like Stephen Covey talks about. I'm on a roll. I called my wife. I was like, hey, we only need like 10 of these to pay for our entire expenses. I'm paying my truck payment. This guy just gave me $500 cash. He's going to bring us another $400 next month. And she's like, okay, Brent, sounds like you're on to something else, because as entrepreneurs, we always have something we're talking or selling somebody or promoting. But to ask about how the Land Sharks is set up, it's a series of modules, videos. That's just a nice word for video. That is me giving you the exact steps to picking your market, to picking your playground, to picking, land areas that are in demand, and then how to get in touch with those owners, and then how to get those properties under contract at a discount, and then to sell that land to people that really want to own it, and then how to basically package it like a business. We do weekly support calls. We've got, I've got my assistant coach answering questions. So it's really action-based to get you results really quickly. And I'd be fine. I could share, it's like, I don't know how long we have on this podcast, but I'd love to kind of talk about how to do a deal right away, be able to go out and do a land deal tomorrow.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Feel free. Yeah. I'm sure the audience, now you piqued my curiosity. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I started in my own backyard. I went directly to the county treasurer's office. It was the El Paso County Treasurer. I was literally based on Fort Carson, stationed there. And I went and got a list of people that weren't paying their property taxes. Now, there's easier ways to do it than that. So you could do it that way and literally just send a letter to these people or a handwritten postcard. And heck, I can give you the postcard that I used. If you go to thelandsharks.com/postcard, that postcard says, hey, my name's Brent. I'd like to buy your land in El Paso County. You could change that wherever you're at. If you're interested in a fair, all cash, no hassle offer, call me or text me. God bless you. And my phone was ringing because I thought I was mailing the tax delinquent list. But what I was mailing was the county held tax lien list, the unbuildable not accessible, too small, like problem land that these guys were like, you know how when a pond dries up and the fish start to starve to death and you throw a little worm in there and they explode? That's what happened when I mailed this list. But the problem is that list is so small. And then you got to mail other landowners. So here's the way to do it though. You want to go on Zillow or Redfin and you want to go to the sold tab. You want to see what's sold in the last 30 days. And then you go to the housing type, whether you're on Zillow or Redfin, that both work about the same. And if you're not finding results on Zillow, go to Redfin. Well, you want to see the land that's sold, so land only, in the last 30 days. And you're looking for the clusters. Like if you're on Zillow, it's like yellow dots. And when you see a cluster, you can start clicking on each one of those. And it's like, okay, this one's a half acre. This one's a half acre. This one's 1 acre. This one's a half acre, half acre, half acre. Okay, the half acre parcels look like they're in the most demand. Well, then you can go over to Prop Stream and pull Prop Stream do you have a Prop Stream link or anything like that? Do you use Prop Stream, Steve, in your business?
We have before, but no, I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I don't have like a referral link or anything like that. So,
well, there you go. I mean, you can go to Prop Stream. Prop Stream is basically just a way to pull property owners. You could do it for multifamily or land or houses. Well, I just do the property characteristics. I draw the little map around that area where I'm seeing the land selling. And then I'm going to pull all the vacant landowners and send them that postcard and start having conversations with people. And my goal is to send like 20 or 30 postcards a day. Now I've changed a little bit to land offer letters. That's a little bit more, I would say, in depth. It's going to take a longer than a podcast to explain all that, but you could start doing land deals tonight, start getting parcels under contract, and start. And really at the end of the day, you just got to get it under contract for a little less than it's worth and find someone that's willing to pay a little bit more than what you're under contract to pay. So that's my fastest way to, start getting involved right now and doing money-making activities. So many people focus on their business card and their business name. And do I need a website? I haven't talked about any of that. It's straight talking to sellers or landowners, talking to buyers. Where do we find the buyers? They're everywhere. Put a sign out front. Contact the neighbors. The neighbor just took a deal from us. That's how, like I always tell people, sell the land to the neighbor. Well, we thought we had a piece of land, but we didn't have it under contract yet. And we went and asked the neighbor if they wanted to buy it. Well, guess what? The neighbor just walked over there, knocked on the door, and said, yeah, I'll buy that land. And it doesn't always work out like that, but the neighbor just ripped us off on a deal. If we would have had it under contract, like we jumped the gun. So we're still making mistakes, but anyhow. The neighbors love to buy the land. And most of the time, there's no door for them to go and knock on. This was just a weird situation. And most of the time, they'll never look up who owns that land. It's a land owners trust. Looks like they live in like South Florida. They're not going to skip trace and figure out the phone number, but we will.
No, that's awesome because in that instance, right, you're bringing value. And, this is something different. I think I've always thought this to be different for land specifically. It's like, okay, well, hey, I own this parcel. And typically if it's land and you're only dealing with lots and vacant land, and this could even work for a residential area if there's a vacant lot or something like that. But I see this particularly valuable if there's already something with some acreage or some, something more substantial. It's like, well, hey, I'd like to have more privacy. I'd like to have control over that neighboring lot or whatever's around that, me. And you're exactly right. Most people have zero understanding of what skip tracing is or how to get in touch with the owner. So, you're bringing value in that. And that's at the end of the day, guys, like that's all it is, right? We get compensated for providing value, right? For solving problems, right? Whether that be, hey, I want more space for my animals, or I just want the privacy and having the control over that lot so nobody ever builds there to mess with my view or whatever, right? And you're bringing value to the table when you can come and bring an offer like that. And gosh, there's so many different facets, right? You mentioned it earlier. Just get moving. Just don't worry about the business cards. Just take some action. Get out there. Start making some phone calls, making some connections, talking to people. This goes for agents. I think that's great advice for agents. I have my real estate license. We have very similar stories. I was a wholesaler at one point. I've been a retail agent before as well. And so much time gets wasted on, you got to get ready to get ready. Right. And it's like, I got to get the website up and running. I got to get my business cards. And it's like, no, just go start talking to sellers, start talking to buyers, take some action, get moving. So yeah, that's a lot of great nuggets there.
It's so true, and then we can find other things to suck our time, like emails. Usually, what my email is to go and check emails for me. It's usually a to-do list for me. Like, right now I'm afraid to look at my email because it's tax season. Goodness gracious. I got to answer all these questions, and it's usually a to-do list. But guess what? Those questions, answering that, it's not going to make me a single penny. But actually talking to a landowner or a property owner, if you're listening to this, you might be, multifamily, like actually talking to those A, B, C, D owners. We bought a D apartment complex, and we actually thought we were mailing a fourplex. The reason why we had mailed him was we were wholesaling properties and houses, and we're like, well, let's mail the fourplexes too. Well, turns out he ended up owning 19 total, and that's money-making activities, actually talking to those owners of those properties. And then the other side of that coin is, all right, now let's assign this contract. We actually kept it. We should have assigned it. We would have made a lot more money quicker rather than getting into a 3-year renovation on buying a D apartment complex. I'm sure you teach people about that, but that's money-making activities, not like, answering your emails for your accountant's questions. Now, those should be answered,
right?
But do it during times maybe when you can't talk to sellers during the day. Like maybe that's the the getting up aspect. Like people ask me, well, what did you do? Because I talk about getting up early when I was in the military to do my business, because I would get up about 2 hours before I had to be on base. And like, you can't make phone calls at that time. Yes, I can answer those accountant questions and the emails at that time, or pull that list I just talked about of pulling the landowners and get the mail going out the door. And then my lunch break would be, replying to those voicemails.
Yeah, just to get rolling. I've definitely found that, right? We have the body motion tends to stay in motion, and body rest tends to stay at rest. Like too many people, I think, get used to just kind of being in their normal routine, get stuck in their 9 to 5, got the same routine just over and over and over. But it's like, yeah, once you start taking some action, get into motion, you'll find that can snowball, right? And okay, you just getting up that little bit earlier. Okay, now you pull your list. Well, now you don't have to get ready later in the day when you're already tired and now your kids are trying to play. Well, I got to pull this list. No, you already did it earlier. So now you can make the calls, let's say on your lunch break or whatever. And now now you got some activity going. Now you got some momentum going, and then that builds, right? So yeah, no, that's great. Well, yeah. I feel like Brent, I could talk to you all day here about this, and I love the land component too, because it actually it's I feel like you almost have a little bit wider of an audience. It's not your typical buyer. It's not somebody just looking for a house for themselves, but you have different avenues there that are maybe underserviced, right? Like it's, whether that be the neighbor, whether that be a builder, whether that be, I'm a part of some like glamping communities, right? Like,
those are exciting.
So we do vacation rentals, right? And short-term rentals. And man, I can't tell you how many of them are like, well, I'm looking for a parcel, right? I need some land so we can set up some, some temporary structures, some glamping tents, or maybe, look for something that's got an RV park, or, something that we can do something cool and crazy with. That's not your typical, cookie cutter, turnkey rehab kind of deal.
It's very underserved, So I'd say my first 10 properties that I got under contract, 10 parcels of land, and some of them I bought, were not buildable. And it's so funny. For a while there, I was selling land to truck drivers that just wanted to park their rig for the night. And then I got another 4,900 square foot parcel, and you needed 5,000 square foot in El Paso County to build. Well, this guy put a fence around it and put his concrete equipment. He had a concrete business, and he's like, he found it on Craigslist. I got it under contract. I purchased it for $3,300. This guy purchased it for me for $35,000. Like within a week, he goes, "You have answered my prayer. I've been looking for a place to park. And it's in this area." He called the county. They said, "Is it okay?" They said, "County's like, pay the back taxes. You could do whatever you want. Like you can build your Taj Mahal, but not a home." They would not let him build a home he could live in. It was so funny. But he parked his equipment on there, put up a structure fence, and, he no longer pays the rent. He was paying huge rent to just park a few trucks each month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like you said, you're solving problems, right? You're bringing value, right? You solved it. You gave him an out, right? So that's awesome, and people will pay for that all day long.
Yeah, $1 million view. That's a real thing too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, I want to transition. This time in the show, we have what we call our fire round. It's a little bit more rapid fire, just kind of short answer, quick response kind of deal. You ready? You up? You game?
Short answers, quick response. I'm game. I agree.
All right. What is the best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Oh, it's my counter. Profit first, profit first, profit first. I said it 3 times for a reason. Profit First by Mike Michalowicz.
Yep. Great book. Yeah, no, that's super solid. Yeah. You guys definitely check in. If you've not heard of that book, it's a great book. Pay yourself first, profit first. Yep. You got it. What would you say? What's your superpower?
My superpower is finding smarter people than me to help me out with things like, if I need to build a website, I have no clue how to build a website. I've got a lot of websites. I find someone to help me out. I do what I do best and find other people to help me out with the rest.
Yeah. And I know that that's something that you do, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, but like team building, right? Finding other people that are around you, systems where you're not a solopreneur, right? Where you're having to do it all.
It's not possible.
Yeah. Now, and surefire way to get burnout too. That's great. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career?
We talked about it a little bit already. Scaling is sometimes very dangerous. And what I mean by scaling is, okay, I'm doing really well with mail. I'm going to add, radio, and then I'm going to add this and that. So, it's picking your area and scaling slow, building slow, increasing slow. One time we hired 4 people on my team at one time. That is always a nightmare. It never works out, growing too fast. My grandma would say, you're too big for your britches type thing, because something is always going to break when you're growing no matter what. But if you're growing too fast, then something is guaranteed to break. And how fast is too fast? I don't know. You only have so much hours in a day to focus on, just a couple of things. So everyone wants to go out there. And I feel like if you just want to make an extra $5,000 a month, and then it turns in, I'm going to make an extra $50,000. Let's do $500,000 a month now. Things break. And sometimes you got to kind of come back and shrink down a little bit. Businesses die of indigestion. Too much.
That's a good quote. I like that. For the busy working professional, trying to work towards financial freedom or just some to have some more flexibility in their life, what advice would you have for them?
Turn off, get rid of the Netflix subscription, turn the TVs off, just focus. I know that's the hardest thing in the world. It's like telling, a baby that you can't have your milk type thing. But because entrepreneurs, we are visionaries. We're creative. We see opportunity in everything. So slow down a little bit, do what you do best, and, write that down in the Someday Maybe book and put it on that shelf for the Someday Maybe shelf and come back to it. It's not going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I heard some good advice one time where it's like, because we do have those thoughts that are kind of running, a million miles an hour, and you may have, an idea in the middle of the night that you feel like has to be enacted upon. I've heard some great advice. It's like, just keep a notepad for that, and then just do a mind dump. That way, you'd put it to paper. It's off of your mind though at this point. And so like now you don't necessarily have to go explore it. You can come back and revisit it. But at least that way, you put it to paper, you got it out of your mind, and onto some paper. Now it does live somewhere. And so you can't always come back, and maybe that's the idea tank,
So good.
Yeah. And then, so, to kind of wrap up, how can our audience get in touch with you? What's the best, way to reach out if they want to learn more about how they can land hack their way to, to freedom, or if they just want to pick your brain about, parenting advice or.
Oh man, I'm not the expert on that. Call my wife for that. So the best way is thelandsharks.com. If you're interested in joining the community and you want me to hold your hand and show you, how you can build a $1 million land business, then head on over to landsharks.com. If you're just looking to like watch some videos, I'm actually really ramping up my my TikTok lately. I've been having a lot of fun with that, making videos. I've been trying to do videos each day on how to do a land deal, how we're doing land deals, breaking down the systems. That's Brent L. Bowers 1 on TikTok. If you just want to send me a message or ask me a question, then I'm on Instagram, Brent L. Bowers, and that's L as in Lima, Brent L. Bowers.
Awesome. Well, Brent, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I know I've had a blast just talking with you. And, I'm sure our listeners gain a lot of insight into, how they can build, for one, another stream of income. But I mean, really, that can be game changing. And hopefully they got a little bit of insight too, and just kind of some life lessons and things, some areas maybe they can focus on or kind of put some attention to, with the family aspect and, putting time where it counts. So, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today. I know our listeners got a lot of value out of it. I know I did. So thanks for jumping on and really appreciate you.
God bless, Steve. Thank you.
Hey, bless you. Thank you so much. Oh man, what a great episode with Brent. He shares with us about his strategy called land. Well, his company is called Land Sharks, but all about how wholesaling land deals, land opportunity, really how to just dive in and get started. And really the impetus for that for him was so that he could spend more time, with his family. He was a prior serviceman in the Army. And so, obviously that a lot of times that can take you away from family. I know, I've seen that firsthand with several of our partners and co-hosts here on the Cash Flow Project. I know a lot of our listeners, you guys have served and have to be deployed. So shout out to you guys. But this is a great way to, supplement income so that your family can live a better life. Maybe that's setting you up for a better retirement once you transition out or retire. So yeah, great strategies from Brent. Great. And just a great guy. So great interview with him. Definitely go back and listen to it. If you found, somebody you think that this might resonate with, of course, feel free to share the podcast. Please, we'd greatly appreciate that. We'd love a 5-star review as well if you found some value. And of course, if you want to connect with us locally as well, make sure that you're checking out Honolulu. A tongue twister. Mouthful, really. Honolulu Multifamily and more. We've got meetups that we have every month. We've got another one coming up here shortly. So definitely check us out on the Facebook group if you want to connect with like-minded investors, like-minded individuals. And of course, make sure, like I said, you're sharing, the podcast. We do have also the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference coming up in a few months. It's going to be over on the Big Island. So June 29th through July 1st. It's going to be over in Waimea. So at the Mauna Lani Resort, beautiful resort. So of course, make sure that you're making plans to be there. If you want to come out and spend some time with like-minded investors, business owners, entrepreneurs. There's going to be sessions on multiple topics that can help you take your business to the next level. So, but that's going to be it for today, guys. Hope you found value in the podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Aloha.